Welcome to Taiwan Talks. I'm Brath Wang. China is yet again on a hunt to purge leaders in its military. Miao Hua, director of the Political Affairs Department of China's Central Military Commission, became the 7th CMC member to be purged since Xi rose to power in 2012. Miao was suspended on the grounds of serious violation of discipline. Analysts are still debating whether this was Xi's foes trying to remove his close allies or Xi himself cleaning up the Navy. We'll discuss what this means for Xi's Iron Fist rule and the ripple effects it could have on the entire region. Joining us today are Huang Huibo, National Zhengzhi University Professor of Diplomacy, Stephen Tan, International Policy Advisory Group Managing Director. A very warm welcome to both on the show today. I'll start with you, Professor. Given that Miao is seen as a close ally and aide of Xi, what do you take of this?
I think it's probably the so-called serious violation of principles that put Miao, under investigation or serious investigation by the party. Why? Because I think there are two greater possibilities to explain why Miao Hua is under investigation. One is, of course, his attempt to challenge the current vice chairman of the CPC's Central Military Commission, Zhang Youxia. So Miao is trying to challenge Zhang Youxia over, Zhang Youxia's position now. And so after these kind of hard faction struggles or power struggles between Zhang Youxia and Miao Hua lost.
So what do you think Xi sees of this? Do you think he agrees to this power struggle, or do you feel that he wants to support, of course, his strong ally?
Yes. I think Xi has to face the reality that even if Miao Hua was, brought up by Xi Jinping himself before, but if there's some hard evidence indicating Miao Hua is involved in some scandals or corruptions, then I think Xi Jinping, in order to face the rest of the generals in the army, has to do something against Miao Hua. That is, my second greater possibility is maybe Miao Hua, in his position, has received quite a few bribery for people's official or position promotions within the military, and that was found by the Central Military Commission. So Miao Hua has to be put under investigation.
Stephen, what do you think? Professor Huang mentioned two possibilities. What's your take?
Well, to start with, CCP is a big black box. We don't know what's inside and we don't know what's going on. I like to offer as much as I can from the expert's view or perspective, but the true answer is that out of various speculations of what's going on or what have been going on for the past years or two, we really don't know what's the reason and rationale behind this. Not just this case, but the previous cases that you just mentioned, Ralph, that, what on earth, this, did this guy, got himself into trouble, or that person who is absolutely very close to Xi and promoted, by Xi and got out of trouble, various different theories and speculations. One could be that the fight between the factions under Xi. Another possible theory is that, Xi's power has been eroded. So there are some signals that could be perceived to challenge the authority of Xi, either within the party or within the military or within the government. But the truth being told is that none of them makes sense. Because we're trying to read through and find the signals that Xi's power within the party has been weakened, but we haven't found any.
But how much possibility do you feel there could be actual corruption, that Xi wants to protect his own people, but he can't because this is a clear example?
With due respect, I don't think it's purely out of the technical issue of corruptions. There are always corruptions, but then whether or not that very incident of corruptions could be taken by the authority to put down somebody like Miao Hua, it's highly unlikely. If you read through the papers officially by the CCP or the Chinese government, it appears to be that way because they want you to believe that way. But everybody knows that it's not the case. But the true reason behind this is something out of various speculations. If you read through the analyses everywhere, people like to, build up a theory where they believe the theory that she is going down, or the theory the other way around is that she is so very much out of the trouble. And it's just the factions underneath him, promoted by him, fighting with each other. But Roth, as I just pointed out, that from outside of the big black box, we don't really know. We just know that it's something out of ordinary. It's just so unusual that it happens again and again.
What is your gut feeling to this? You see papers and you read and their theories, as Professor Huang mentioned. What do you feel is actually going on?
Well, I like to think that she is still, relatively speaking, she is still under control. She recognizes that there have been some mistakes. The mistakes in terms of the directions and trajectories that he, as a leader of the party and leader of the country, has been making for the past few years. And there have been some signals or directions of the corrections. Not corruptions, but corrections. Now, from time to time, here and there, someone, would be perceived to be the scapegoat, or someone has been taken down, and those people, including Miao Hua in this case, perceived to be his own people, one of his own guys. So that could be a signal of Xi sending to the world, or at least to the CCP, that he recognizes those mistakes and is undergoing some of the corrections or corrections in directional trajectories. And that is a reasonable speculation. But again, that's only a speculation. We don't really know what exactly has been going on within the CCP.
Speaking of corrections and reshuffling, in 2024 alone, 2 former defense ministers, Li Shangfu and Wei Fenghe, have been removed. We're seeing the Chinese Communist Party now purge Miao Hua. Just in late November, there were reports that the current defense minister, Dong Jun, a protege of Miao, was under investigation. Professor Huang, what do you feel is the trajectory of Xi's anti-corruption campaign? As you mentioned, that this could be the main core reason, given that he is a protege of that faction.
Let me put it this way. If Xi Jinping really understands that a corrupted army can hardly win a war, then I think he will treat these corruption cases seriously. Because to me and to many analysts, corruptions within the People's Liberation Army seems to be structured crimes. That is, from top to down. Actually, we have seen and we have heard quite a few corruptions. And such an army, how can this army face such an overwhelming presence of U.S. armed force in the theaters? Therefore, I think if Xi Jinping really hopes that his army can win a war, say, against the U.S., then corruption is one of the things that Xi Jinping has to conquer in order to build a better, stronger, and faster PLA for the future use.
So do you feel these allegations and these removals are actually beneficial in the long run for the PLA?
If, again, Xi Jinping thinks that's beneficial for the PLA, then step by step, I think corruption within the PLA will be, less frequently seen, and perhaps the PLA will find a new way to rebuild its capacity, not only to combat, but also for internal management.
Stephen, what do you say to that? Do you feel that this is actually strengthening the PLA, or do you feel it's just a black box? And if so, what does it mean for Taiwan, given that Taiwan is their top target?
I don't know what the PLA will be after all those, disciplinary actions, or all those, corrupted or episode of Dong Jun, Miao Hua, and so on and so forth. But I do know that it's a reflection of the fact that PLA has had some big problems and big issues. Not necessarily corruption issues, but including corruption issues, but more efficient issues on the effectiveness and efficiencies, and how to operate a war and how to put pieces together. It signals that PLA may not have been as strong as we thought they are. And those cases...
Not as strong because of the struggles or because of the shifts and change and all.
Not as strong, not because of the struggles, but not as strong because that those cases have been truly reflecting that there have been some problems. Not challenging the power of the highest leader, Xi Jinping, but the problems of the efficiency and the effectiveness in the management and so on and so forth.
Professor Hong, this is all going on, the purges and the reshuffling, as China's economy continues to struggle and Xi Jinping continues to portray this Chinese dream. Do you feel that could have an effect, or do they go alongside each other?
It's so complicated, but I think first, the purging might lead to some expectation or anticipation of people about, whether or not Taiwan will become a scapegoat under such a military chaotic situation in Beijing. We don't know. Okay, and
that's because of the economy. That's because of the struggling economy.
Strong economy.
They need an excuse to vent that pressure or that.
I think all these factors come together as one. Okay, but of course, economy might be one of the biggest factors to explain why, maybe Taiwan will become a scapegoat. And also, I think we have to note that actually a lot of behaviors undertaken by Xi Jinping and his government is to distract US and its allies. So Beijing is using a lot of individual events, either in the region or outside the region, to distract all these US and its allies in order to gain some leverage, either in negotiations or in some hard power interactions.
This includes with the Philippines and what we're seeing in the South China Sea.
South China Sea too. So individual cases. And to me, I think the Xi Jinping administration is using some contingent approach or case-by-case approach to dealing with a lot of struggles or disputes with US, with Japan, with the Philippines, with Taiwan, and so on. And whether or not it's successful, I think at least it seems successful for now, because on the one hand, Beijing has been able to use these individual cases to disunite a lot of US allies here. And on the other hand, I think the US, because of all these turmoils, especially under the upcoming Trump administration, seems more willing to negotiate with Beijing to bring things back to peace and stability. So maybe it seems successful now for Beijing.
Ralph, let me just jump in very quickly on that same topic. I think the peace and stability of Taiwan Strait rests very much less on the PLA reshuffles or the strength or weakness of the PLA in the past or going forward. It's more on the current situation and the future developments of the economic and social development of China and the power of CCP on one hand, and the upcoming U.S.-China relationship under Trump administration. And those are the two most important factors that will interchangeably affect the peace and stability of Taiwan Strait. The reshuffling of the PLA personnel, which is very important on its face, but it's only a subset of those issues. We wouldn't amplify this by saying that PLA is going to be stronger or weak, or more weakened in the past, so that it will negatively or positively affect the peace and stability of the Taiwan Strait. It will more on the CCP's power and the Chinese internal situation, as long as the future U.S.-China relationship, particularly within the first 2 years of the Trump administration.
So it lies between the U.S. and Taiwan and China in terms of how the relations go.
Exactly.
Speaking of Xi and Taiwan, we've also seen both come up in an NBC Meet the Press interview with U.S. President-elect Donald Trump. Let's take a look.
If China invades Taiwan on your watch, are you committed to defending Taiwan?
I never say.
Still won't say.
I never say because I have to negotiate things, right?
Can you just say if you'll defend it? I'm not saying if the U.S. military.
I'd prefer that they don't do it. I have a very good relationship with President Xi. We have been communicating with each other.
Since you were elected?
Yes.
Professor Wong, I'll come back to you again. What do you think Trump's words mean in terms of that he does not prefer that China attack Taiwan? Is there a deterrence effect there?
I tend to think he's showing some softer approach to Beijing, in this interview.
Compared to Biden?
And also compared to when Trump was president before. Okay, so he seems softer. So we have to wonder why he became softer at this interview. So one of the possibilities is that, of course, he, according to Trump himself, he just made a phone call to Xi Jinping. So we have no clue what these two top leaders talked about, but maybe there were some deals already between these two gentlemen. That is why Trump seems softer to Beijing in order to keep the promise he earned from Xi Jinping over the phone call. That's one of the possibilities. And second is that now people say it's Trump 2.0. So this upcoming Trump administration, under the leadership of Donald Trump, may be going to pay more attention to the cost it is going to pay in order to maintain peace and stability in the Taiwan Strait. So, of course, on the one hand, the PLA shouldn't use force to threaten Taiwan, but on the other hand, Taiwan shouldn't call for an independence approach in order to, keep the strait as peaceful as possible. So I think Trump is going to play this two-tier approach to dealing with both Beijing and Taiwan in order to, to see the greatest profit in the eyes of Trump so that he can manage some other issues in some other areas or regions.
Stephen, do you feel there were deals that were done, as the professor mentioned, with Trump, given that he mentioned in the interview that he just spoke with President Xi 3 days ago?
Well, I don't believe the deals are done, but I think there could be some asks by both sides. Trump being as transactional as we understand he is, how much of a scale of the transactions that he is or he will be making during the first half a year, let's say, of his second term, that's a big question. But you will see that both sides have been accumulating various asks, and then try to make transactions. Now, we don't know what those are, but
what do you suspect when it comes to Taiwan? What kind of deals?
Well,
discussions.
I think Xi Jinping has previously asked Biden administration a lot of things, various different things, with respect to Taiwan. Arms sale being one, and then how to openly change the so-called One China policy, or the various different variations or the practices under the One China policies. Well, you can tell that those are the previous asks, small asks here and there, but significant by Xi Jinping's administration to the Biden administration. Would those be repeated again? Under what terms? But I wouldn't say that those are put on the first and foremost. You can say that. Well, Trump is telling the whole world that solving the Ukraine-Russian war will be the top priority. and pinpointing that China might have a role in there. So that seems to be one of the first priorities. Now, with respect to Trump's remarks, open remarks on in the media interview, I would say that Trump deviates what his predecessor, the current President Biden, has openly said about coming to the defense
Saying 4 times
or having a commitment to that if China invades Taiwan. However, Trump has not deviated the current State Department or the current administration's formal policy, which is one China policy, which is opposing the unilateral change of the peace of the status quo and the peace and stability of Taiwan Strait, and under the long-lasting practices of so-called strategic ambiguity. If anything that deviates the long-lasting practices and the policies, as I just mentioned, the United States at that time will decide what to do and in which directions.
Professor Hung, given that Trump's remarks didn't deviate too much from the current U.S. policy towards Taiwan and towards China, but in terms of substance, the first Trump administration did have record sales of planes and jets and all these other defensive and also offensive articles to Taiwan. Do you feel that will continue? Do you feel that will even be hypened up, given that Trump has a tendency to sell these articles and wanting America, the defense industry, to continue?
It depends largely on whether or not Trump is going to have a better control over his White House and his executive branch. So if he can, then I think perhaps in the first year or two, the Trump administration is not going to sell those more offensive weapons to Taiwan, because now we can observe that not only, as I said, Trump has been softer about Beijing in his interview, but he also lowered his tariff rate from 60% to 10% against Beijing. So there must be something going on. There must be something going on, but we don't know. So I think Donald Trump might be satisfied with Beijing's response to his requests. That is why he becomes softer about Beijing. But if Beijing cannot deliver, like Beijing did last time, phase 1 agreement, Beijing said, yes, I'm going to accept it, I'm going to implement it, but it ended up that Beijing didn't fully. So if Beijing cannot, have its words and do it as Xi Jinping might have promised, then I think perhaps Donald Trump is going to use the arms sales to Taiwan as a leverage or as a bargaining chip to deal with Beijing in the future.
What do you say to that, Stephen? Do you feel that he will use that as a chip for Taiwan, or do you feel that there could be more arms sales if we've seen?
Well, arms sale is a slightly different off-topic, because that is in line with President Trump's open remark on Taiwan, spending more, using more resources for its own defense.
But that's also something that China vehemently opposes.
Right. But Trump himself is a big fan of you pay your own fees for your protection. So that translates directly into the arms sale. So to what extent that will come into play as an issue or as one of the asks by Beijing to Washington not to do that. You see the two conflicting issues, the conflicting the directions of the same issue, arms sale. On one hand, Washington would love to sell as many weapons to Taiwan.
But how much
possible.
will Beijing try to stop that, or will the U.S. comply with Beijing's requests?
Well, it's really hard to say, because arms sale is one thing. The the policy remarks by the president, or whether or not the policy will change or switch a little bit tickers to the other directions is another thing. To what extent Beijing will tolerate the continuous arms sale or escalated arms sale at the same time, requesting the Washington to make more commitments to their favor, that's a possibility. That's a possibility that we'll see. But then again, I agree that arms sale could be used as something, as a chip. But that, even within Washington, there will be some pressures from within the party, from people on the hills, encouraging President Trump to continue or to enhance the arms sale to Taiwan. And we're making a request, and we're trying to work with Washington to see if that can be realized to the win-win situation. So I think that complications will continue. It's an ever-changing dynamics that it could change overnight. But so at this point, I think I wouldn't say arms sales is purely a chip that Trump can just trade it off just like that. I think there are some variations, and those remains to be seen.
Thank you very much for both of your insights today. If you liked our show, please search for us on YouTube, give us a thumbs up, and hit subscribe to our channel. Thank you for watching, stay safe, and see you next time.